Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the birth lottery, and specifically, how universal moral foundations actually work. I'm literally so thrilled you're here, because we're about to tackle one of the most uncomfortable, but absolutely fascinating questions in all of political philosophy. It's a question about where our beliefs actually come from. We all walk around with these deep convictions about how the world should work, but how much of that is truly our own independent reasoning, and how much is just the luck of the draw? Get ready, because this exploration is absolutely going to challenge how you view your own mind. Okay, let's dive into this. Take a look at this genuinely unsettling statistic from Pew Research. It turns out that globally, a massive 91% of adults simply keep the exact same belief system they were born into and raised with, whether that's a specific religion or no religion at all. I mean, think about that for a second. People aren't typically out there investigating every major faith or philosophy on Earth and then independently concluding that the one they just happened to be born into is the right one. Overwhelmingly, we just keep the operating system we started with. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really let it sink in. Would you believe the exact same things if you were born somewhere else? Like, stretch that 91% retention logic over to your politics. Think about your stances on capitalism versus socialism, or tradition versus progress. Are those truly independent choices? Or are they just the software installed by your environment at birth, running exactly as programmed? Section 1. The pattern laid bare. Now, I want to be super clear right off the bat here. Inheriting a belief, whether you got it from devoutly religious parents, committed free market conservatives, or staunch socialists, doesn't automatically make that belief wrong, right? That would be a logical fallacy. But the reality of how we form beliefs should definitely give us pause. We've got to be humble enough to admit that most of us, most of the time, didn't run some neutral, from-scratch, independent investigation of all the available options. Instead, we were handed an inherited starting position. And human nature being what it is, we then go out into the world and expertly hunt down reasons to confirm what we already started with. Section 2. The Veil of Ignorance. So, how do we get past our own biases? Well, let's travel back to 1971. The brilliant philosopher John Rawls built this incredible thought experiment specifically designed to strip away this exact birth lottery problem. He called this concept the original position, and it's guarded by what he termed the veil of ignorance. I want you to imagine you're part of a group tasked with designing the fundamental rules for a society. But here's the catch. You are designing these rules from behind a veil. You have absolutely zero knowledge of what position you will actually occupy once that veil lifts. You don't know if you'll be born rich or poor, into a majority or a minority, healthy or disabled, in a booming economy or a struggling one. The rules of Rawls' experiment are really quite simple. Step 1, you hide behind the veil. Step 2, you strip away your identity. And step 3, you design fair rules. Rawls argued that under these specific conditions, rational people wouldn't heavily favor any one specific group. And why is that? Well, because once the veil lifts, you might end up in the disadvantaged seed. You certainly wouldn't rig the game for the wealthy if there was a really good chance you'd be born into poverty. And this leads perfectly to what Rawls called the difference principle. Basically, inequality is only justified if it actually improves the position of society's least advantaged members. The veil of ignorance takes our opening question entirely seriously. It beautifully proves that if we didn't know our starting hand in life, we would logically advocate for very different, vastly fairer structures. Section 3. The moral luck dilemma. But the rabbit hole goes even deeper into a concept developed in the late 1970s by philosophers Thomas Nagel and Bernard Williams. It's called moral luck. This is this deeply uncomfortable phenomenon where factors completely outside a person's control end up shaping their actual moral and political convictions. It literally means the century, the geography, and the culture you just happen to be born into dictate what you will sincerely defend as obviously correct. I mean, people in the past who defended practices we now universally condemn often did so with complete sincerity, largely because moral luck placed them in a time and place that shaped what seemed undeniably true to them. Which forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. Are we truly autonomous moral reasoners? Like, if where and when you were born substantially predicts what you'll end up believing, how much of what feels like your carefully reasoned, independent conviction is actually just an accident of birth, beautifully dressed up after the fact as a personal discovery? Section 4. Universal Moral Foundations. Now, I know it's easy to feel a bit lost here, but let's pivot sharply. So the crucial point is, we do not have to fall into the trap of total relativism, where everything is arbitrary and nothing matters. There is a deeply fascinating science behind how universal moral foundations actually work. Anthropologists like Donald Brown have extensively studied human cultures across the globe and found what they call human universals. Across wildly different societies that have literally never had direct contact with one another, the exact same moral intuitions just keep appearing. We're talking prohibitions on arbitrary murder within the group, deep concepts of reciprocity and fairness, an instinctual drive to care for children, and a strong sense of in-group loyalty. This proves that our beliefs aren't just completely random social constructs.
Building on this, we can look at researcher Jonathan Haidt's work on the moral toolkit. He found that human beings universally share these specific foundational raw materials: care, fairness, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Every single human culture on Earth uses these exact same foundations to build its moral and political systems. This is exactly how universal moral foundations work. They are deeply, biologically embedded in our psychology. And this brilliantly illustrates the balance we have to strike here. There's a massive difference between our universal raw materials and our cultural weighting. The foundational tools like care, fairness, and loyalty are universally human. We all have them. But how heavily we weigh them and exactly how we apply them to specific political questions, well, that is what we inherit from our geography, our century, and our parents. We all possess the exact same toolkit, but the house we build with it, that depends entirely on where we were born. Section 5. Applying targeted humility. So, how do we actually use this information practically so we don't just spiral into believing nothing means anything? Well, here is a highly usable test you can apply to your life today. Let's take Rawls' veil of ignorance right out of the textbook and use it on your own political convictions. Ask yourself, would you still support a specific policy if you didn't know in advance whether you'd be the one benefiting from it or the one bearing its heavy cost? If your support secretly depends on the assumption that you'll always be on the advantage side, well, that is absolutely something you need to notice. Which brings us to targeted humility. You can absolutely still hold your beliefs with genuine conviction, but moral luck demands that you do so while acknowledging that a totally different version of you, raised somewhere else, would sincerely and passionately hold the complete opposite belief. The intense confidence you feel in your convictions is perfectly normal, but it isn't by itself good evidence that you are objectively right. I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Pick one deeply held political or religious belief you have right now. Just one. Now, be completely honest with yourself. If you were born in a different country, to a different family, in a completely different century, what would you believe today? Take a minute and really think about that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you love examining the hidden assumptions beneath our everyday lives, definitely stick around because we have so many more of these deep dives coming up. Keep questioning and keep learning.